Hi everyone, I'm gonna talk to you today about the transformation of market research and how it's blending into advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. In fact, you will see that I don't like to call it the digital transformation of market research because I think it's a radical transformation that goes well beyond what is just digital. So I'm going to take you on this journey. I lived in the country where this was invented in New Zealand, and I'm going to invite you to wrap your feet with a cord and take a jump with me, because if we don't do it, and this is our industry standing besides the bungee jump, what's going to happen is someone is going to push us from the back and we're going to have to take the jump anyway. So I'm going to invite you to take the jump with me. Let's wrap ourselves around and go on this journey. So, like with every transformation, there are several challenges. And when it comes to the transformation that is posed by AI, I think the foundational research that we have to keep in mind is this one from Oxford and City, which is called "The Future is Not What It Used to Be." And I like to always quote these research from 2015 because it puts a lot of emphasis in this, which is the importance of repetition in the ease of automation, right? So the study goes into a lot of detail as to the tasks and jobs that in 10 years will be automated or replaced by robots or machines. And the focus is on everything that is repetitive. So you've got to think yourselves, if you are in a job or in a company where a lot of what you do is very repetitive, it is likely to be a good candidate for automation. Now, as you know, I'm a researcher. I love segmentations. I like this approach a little better, and it's a twist on the segmentation from Oxford that just looks at repetitiveness of tasks. And this one is has two variables that you look at: repetitiveness on left to right, and then from top to bottom, it's compassion required, and it allows you to map the tasks and the jobs at risk of automation in a different way. So the ones that are at higher risk of automation, according to this approach, which I love, are repetitive tasks where compassion is not required, and those are tasks like those of a dishwasher, drivers, which is why you see automated cars and trucks are one of those technologies that is already starting to make quick progress. Security guards, also within the bottom and the higher in terms of risk of automation. Then on the other quadrant, where compassion is not required necessarily, but they're high creativity jobs, we put things like data science, and this presentation is about data analytics and advanced analytics. So data science is one of those things that is possibly quite quick to be automated, depending on exactly what the task is and how we define it, and artists as well, because compassion is not required. And we'll see when we come to the top tasks and jobs why this is important. So in terms of repetitive tasks where compassion is required, we have examples like elderly care, teachers, wedding planners, and those are harder to automate because for a machine, compassion is really hard, right? So you wouldn't really want to put a machine in charge of the elderly, even though probably the tasks that they will need to do are quite repetitive. However, it is important that you implement them in a compassionate way. And I'm going to move to the last, and the ultimate example are babysitters, because it is a super creative job, where compassion is definitely required. And I have my question, whether as market researchers, do we apply compassion in what we do? Do we give recommendations that are compassionate, or are we more on the bottom part of the quadrants, where if compassion is not required and what we do is very repetitive, we're likely to be in the quadrant at higher risk of automation? Now, what we know for sure is that with this transformation, there's going to be an uneven impact of how it gets applied, and it will be uneven in terms of markets. So those that are digitally handicapped will be more significantly impacted than those that are technologically capable. So it's very important, as we think about this problem in general and specifically for an industry, to understand that this is going to impact our clients and ourselves differently. And I've got here some stats which I think today are more relevant than ever. In 2010, about a quarter of the 7 billion population on Earth had connection to the internet. And in 2020, the population has increased a little. So in 10 years, there hasn't been a huge population growth, but the number of people connected to the internet has doubled, right? And there are recent stats, that say that in this year, in these months of pandemic, there's been already a 77% increase versus previous year on e-commerce activities. So when we look at these numbers that were calculated well before COVID, when we say that in 10 more years, everyone will be connected to the internet and digital, quote unquote, things have started to accelerate really fast. So we shouldn't downplay the importance of helping all of our clients digitally transform, because this is what is happening. And the fact that COVID has made for a very difficult year hasn't slowed this down. In fact, all the numbers point to the fact that it has increased significantly the speed of change. And what is stopping change? This is an antibody. And the antibodies are present in all organizations. The structures of organizations are what are slowing down change. The different departments from organizations slow down change. Our client product lines slow change, because if you digitally transform, you've got to adapt the whole customer journey. So how do we break these antibodies and help change? Well, I'm going to bring you to this study from IBM. You may have seen previous versions of it. This is the 19th time they've done it. And it's a study on C-suite across top companies around the world. And this one is called Incumbents Come Back. And what they've done on this one is they've mapped companies according to where they say they are in their digital transformation journey. Remember, this is not market research. This is in general our clients. And they're 36%, the bottom part, 36% of the companies surveyed, the CEOs surveyed, say they are aspirationals. they're still thinking about transformation. 37% are practitioners, so that they're trying to transform, and 27, so a little more than a quarter of our clients are leading the way of the transformation. And what makes a reinventor a reinventor? Just so you can question yourselves whether you are reinventors of our industry. And according to this study, reinventors have these characteristics. They use data, multiple data sources to understand their customers, and we're going to come to that later during the presentation. They personalize products and or services in an agile way, and they have an IT strategy which is 100% aligned with their business. So think this for yourselves. Do you tick all these boxes? Then you're probably on the right journey for transforming your business. Now, like most of you, myself, I've got this love-hate for AI. Now we're narrowing onto, we talked about digital transformation in general, we're narrowing into AI, and I've got this love-hate with AI for a lot of reasons. Now, when we think about the future, our perception in general of the future is quite linear. But when it comes to a disruptive technology, the way it affects the business is not linear at all. It's exponential. So the challenge of thinking about disruptions and technologies like artificial intelligence is that for most of you and for most of our clients, the place where they are is on the left side of the graph, right? They've tried a few AI solutions that came to them, and they didn't quite work. They're quite sad with the potential for transformation of this technology. However, potentially the disruption that this can create on their businesses is huge, right? But there are lots of issues with what? Well, the reality is that the markets where clients are operating are changing all the time, right? This is the famous VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex. There's a lot of ambiguity, and that makes for a very fragile reality. And COVID has proven to us yet again how volatile everything can be. And I love this quote from Jack Ma from Alibaba that says that knowing tomorrow can't be predicted. I mean, on a VUCA world, I will stop trying to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. What I will focus instead is on building a future the way I like it. And to do that, I need to understand what's happening. I need to understand my data. And this is why AI and advanced analytics are becoming so core to the business of clients. And this is why, as an industry, we must understand this to know how we can help. Now, the villain here is the way we handle data. And I cannot stress this enough. Now, I've taken this picture at the London Design Museum, and I love this picture. It talks about the transformation of an industry. And if you look at this industry, the way cargo was loaded onto ships in the early 1900s was very diverse, right? You think about and if you imagine this is data, transaction data is in a shape, retail audit data is in a completely different shape. Household panel data, and we're always talking about the same entities, right? You call the product of our client slightly different because you've always called it slightly different, and it's hard for you to restructure the whole data set just because one client decides to call it its own way. And let alone the brand trackers, which are the most custom of everything in the research world. So when you try to piece everything together, and clients are trying to create this to build data analytics on top, rather than a data lake, it looks more like a dirty data pond, right? So it's very, very hard to build models on the back of data coming from different places with completely different structures. And as an industry, we've got a lot to take responsibility and to blame for the fact that we haven't come up with good data standards. Now, this is the follow-up picture that I took on the London Design Museum that spoke about how globalization and global trade was made possible by the invention of the container. Now, I think that as an industry, we're gonna have to come up with something similar to the container in the data world, because the fact that our different vendors, which are all working with the same clients, cannot have data that talks to each other is an issue that individually every client has to resolve on their own. And it would be a lot more efficient that we all agree on data standards. And there are other industries that have started to walk down this path. It is up to our industry to follow the same route. Now, AI and market research. Before I dive deeper into what I think the potentials are for market research, let's define AI and the areas of AI. And I'm gonna use again, we all have segmentations. So let me define AI in 3 big segments. And like all segmentations, we can split the field into different ways. But I'm going to use the definitions by Demis Hassabis. He's one of the fathers of AI, the founder of Deep. The founder of what's his company? Founder of DeepMind, and the way he segments AI is the following. The first bucket of activity is what he calls computer vision, and this is how computers and humans talk to each other, how computers and humans interface. And the latest and greatest on this field is only a couple of days old, where the Neuralink latest development by Elon Musk, they've implanted some chip on a pig's brain, and they've managed to have a working interface between the brain and the microchip. This is moving into production and starting to get tested with humans as the next phase. So think about this area, which has been rapidly growing, as the way to digitalize everything that humans do, and the aspects of the real world so machines can process it. Now, the second field of AI, according to Demis, is what he calls knowledge representation. And knowledge representation has to do with data, right? So this area is one of the ones that has been less researched and has advanced less in the last 50 years. And this is an area where I think a lot of focus and attention has to be given, because the third big area, which is machine learning or deep learning, has advanced a lot, but the limitations of machine learning are those of the other two fields, right? Unless we've got good ways for machines and humans to communicate and interact, then the machine learning models are limited. And especially if the data is not tidy, then we've got lots of issues of what we can do with it. An example of machine learning is programmatic advertising. So there are lots and lots of applications of machine learning, of course. But these are the three big buckets that I think help clarify the different things that you can do with AI. Now, in terms of our industry, in general, the marketing industry and market research, I've classified the different things that can be done with AI in terms of advanced and basic, and the impact on the organization. So in the bottom bucket, there are things that I call automation, right? So they're the most basic and perhaps lower impact in an organization. So these are things that have to do with social media, chatbots, sentiment analysis, recommendation of responses. These are all activities that many companies have started to do. Now, the next bucket, which is what I call optimization, which are more sophisticated AI models, have to do with or are related to CRM systems and e-commerce, and they have to do with things like email automation, recommendation engines, personalization of different things, products, engines, services, etc. And the last bucket, which is the one with the highest impact on the organization and more sophisticated AI models, has to do with what is called data-driven marketing. So promotions that self-trigger. I've spoke already about programmatic advertising, personalization of ads, retargeting of consumers, or automatic insights. So this is a three-cluster way to segment the stages of AI and its deployment in the marketing teams and the research that gets associated with this. A lot of what gets talked to in the industry has to do with the bottom bucket, and ideally we should be moving up the ladder. As the data gets better, we should be moving up the ladder to help companies with data-driven marketing and insights. Now, with my clients, there is a reality that you cannot ignore, and I'm going to share with you in a second. Now, the digital natives. This is an example of an e-commerce client. The customer journey is something that the digital natives have 100% visibility for. So from the beginning of the customer journey, where they need to motivate target customers, they work on awareness and decision triggers. They push consideration. They help clients find what they need, trigger the purchase decision, and then follow the delivery, the fulfillment of the order, and try to keep them as customers. And if they see that they've lapsed, they try to recover them. So there are different tools that they use along the customer journey, because they've got data on at every point of the journey. So programmatic sampling, dynamic ads, recommendation engines, retargeting of ads. These are all things that are triggered automatically by digital natives. Think, I don't know, Amazon, for example. Now, it's very different when it comes to digitally transforming clients, which are most of our clients, which weren't born digital natives. Now, for them, what they own or their space is the mind space, the communication space. So, of course, we always work on these aspects, right? Aware, consideration, and the challenge is that the retailer is the one that owns the data on where they find a product, how they purchase, the delivery, and then the repurchase, right? So there are huge holes in those data sets to do the type of models that digital natives have always been running. And this is a large challenge for our traditional clients, for most clients, because when they want to personalize, and a lot of clients are talking about this trend of hyper personalization. If you don't have the data at the point of purchase of what's happening with your products and the reasons why they're getting sold, and you can track purchase and repurchase like an Amazon can, then you cannot model the same way that Amazon can. And most of the data that as an industry we give them to compensate for this lack of information has or comes with those silos that we were talking about. It's not only in silo, the data structure is completely different from one vendor to the other. And an additional challenge is that consumers, their digital information is completely fragmented. So there is a study in the States that says that an average person has about 8 personalities digitally. And you think your LinkedIn profile, your Gmail profile, your Facebook profile, and a fake email that you use to register on sites where you don't want your identity to be revealed, etc., etc. So all of these personas are the same person, and as an advertiser, if you're trying to understand what someone does to target stuff, hyper personalized communication to them, you cannot possibly identify that those 5, 6, 7, 8 are the same person. So this is super challenging. And last, data privacy issues and regulations. Of course, there are increasing restrictions on what you can do in terms of data enrichment and data that you can get from people to personalize your products and services more. So these, I think, are the challenges in market research today, and what makes market research, AI, and advanced analytics a discipline that needs to come together, because there are no insights that we can bring to our clients that ignore the fact that these challenges of personalization are central to the survival of our clients in the digital world, in the VUCA world that we all live in. And with that, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna open to questions from you. Thank you.